You know the conspiracy. The moon landing was faked. It was a Hollywood studio set. It wasn't even filmed live. All true. You might feel vindicated, knowing that the televised broadcast was an elaborate ruse. However, I wouldn't smugly don that tinfoil hat. The 1969 broadcast was fabricated because the real moon landing uncovered unworldly horrors. In 1992, as a fresh-faced NASA employee, I experienced this organization's classified initiation process. I was privy to the knowledge that the iconic moon broadcast had been a hoax. I felt pity for Aldrin, Armstrong, and Collins. If the technology had been ready, they could have walked on the moon, I sighed. They deserved that mission. Nobody deserved that mission, Dr. Penny Bradshaw muttered. I ignored the scientist, as she wasn't the most socially adept person. Do you know about the first tape? She continued. I sighed, realizing the conversation could not be avoided. What you mean? I asked, attempting to mask my annoyance. The first tape, Penny repeated. Penny, I don't know what you... We went to the moon. Penny interrupted. The Apollo lunar module went to space, but it was the Aldo module that landed. It was the scouting module. Auclair and Smithson were the first men on the moon, and the Apollo module would have landed too, but... A second module? I scoffed before deciding to entertain the old woman's wild story. And why wouldn't these astronauts receive the credit for landing first? Snapping back into reality, Bradshaw flushed. Oh, I shouldn't have talked about this. Forget I said anything. Dr. Rowland told me that we never landed on the moon, I said. Why would he lie? Why would he spin an even taller tale? He could have allowed NASA employees to continue believing what the rest of the world believes. We distract you from the truth. Some things aren't worth knowing. Before the moon landing, we had no idea what we were going to find, Dr. Bradshaw explained. But there were murmurings about the unsettling frequencies, the received signals, which had driven several scientists to abandon the project entirely. Many of the higher-ups didn't want us to send a manned mission to the moon, but the Russians were stubborn about pressing onward. We had to beat them. I don't understand, Dr. Bradshaw, I said, not believing a word of her tale. People saw things, Daniel. Things they couldn't explain. The radio signals drove them insane. One man took his life. But they don't talk about that. And they don't talk about what really happened on the moon. They didn't tell us any of this, I said. And if it were true, they would tell us. She sighed. You have no idea about the things that they hide from you. Aldo 11 was a black operation, off the books. It ran alongside the Apollo 11 mission. It was intended to prove to NASA that Armstrong's manned mission to the moon would be safe. Right, I sighed. Ignoring me, Penny Bradshaw continued. We had a contingency to utilize a pre-recorded tape from the studio. And when Aldo 11 failed, that's exactly what we did. What are you saying? I asked. We went to the moon, but the real tape was never televised? Penny Bradshaw nodded. There were two teams. Armstrong's team, and the team who saw a horror beyond your wildest imagination. I was nothing more than a newly graduated boy, and I knew that hazing was common in many workplaces. But in the case of Penny Bradshaw, I knew she didn't have a vicious side. I thought she'd simply lost the plot. She was an elderly, near-senile scientist who ended up retiring less than a year later. It was a well-known fact that Bradshaw was suffering from the early stages of dementia, but she'd secured a steady position at NASA. She had status. I should have respected that. I should have respected her. But I didn't think about what she said until the Clementine mission in 1994. It was a disastrous expedition intended to observe the moon and 1620 Geographos, a near-Earth asteroid. But, as was the case with many lunar missions, it ended with a devastating spacecraft malfunction. Yet, with this particular failure, all I could think about was what Penny Bradshaw said. A horror beyond your wildest imagination. If that were so, why would NASA return to the moon? Perhaps I've become wise in my 2 years at the organization. Whatever the case, I found myself entertaining the idea that she'd planted in my head. "Hey, Frank," I said. Frank Perez was known as the man who could get things done. Things which weren't strictly within the bounds of company policy. Things which often weren't legal beyond company policy. The IT specialist didn't even name a price for the favors. If you were a close friend, he would do just about anything off the record. He loathed NASA, though he still works for them to this day. "Daniel!" he exuberantly said, throwing his arms wide. "This is a late shift for you. I was just about to head home." I embraced my friend and cut directly to the point. "I've been thinking about the moon landing." "Well, that's an interesting opener." He smirked, twirling in his creaking desk chair. "I've been thinking about the truth." "Ah, the greatest Hollywood story never told." He chuckled. "But that's not the truth, is it?" I replied. "We did go to the moon. They just didn't show what really happened." The squeaking of Frank's desk chair ceased, and he twisted to face me. "Did somebody tell you something, Daniel?" he asked. I nodded. Frank sighed. "And what makes you think I'd know anything about that?" "I'm just a lowly..." "Nice try. You always know everything, Frank," I interjected, grinning. He smiled. "I do like that reputation. Of course, that doesn't mean I should know the things I know, just as you shouldn't." I gasped. "They double-bluffed us?" Frank nodded. "Why did they tell us that they faked the moon landing?" I asked. "Why not continue with the normal narrative? Why are they so determined to bury the truth of the astronauts who really walked on the moon first?" "Well, they fed us a phony secret to keep our eyes off the real one," Frank answered. "It's the sort of maneuver I would expect from the conniving worms on the board, of course. But I fixed their computers, Danny, and their security is abysmal. I've seen their secrets. They may know a lot about physics, but I know more about the hardware that runs this place." "What did you see, Frank?" I asked. The man shiftily cast his gaze from left to right, ensuring that everyone in the office had gone home for the night. Then he beckoned me closer. "The real 1969 tape," he said. Though I knew nothing at that moment, the whispery tone of his voice froze my body. "What was on it?" I asked. Frank's eyes grew distant. "Death." The computer expert patted a desk chair beside him, and I sat down. "I have the file, you know. I shouldn't, but I do. And I'll show you," he said, starting to type. "But the contents of that tape change you." I shivered, but my lips moved of their own volition. "Show me," I said. Frank nodded, having already entered Prism into the Explorer's search bar. "One final thing." He paused, hovering the cursor over a file entitled 011 tape. I sighed. "Come on, Frank, it's okay. I know what. You don't know anything, and you'll know even less after seeing this. It will corrupt your dreams for nights to come. he interrupted. After I saw the footage, I had visions, Daniel. Awful visions. I made it through the ordeal, but I don't know what happened to me. The same thing that is reported to happen to anyone who watches it. I rolled my eyes. Come on, Frank. You watch too many films. You may be a man of science, Daniel, but in 10 minutes you won't be. There are various classified documents concerning the tape. These reports detail the thing that Auclair's team found. And even 30 years later, we still don't understand it. Nightmares. Hallucinations. I'm ready, Frank. This is an opportunity to witness a pivotal point in human history, something few people have ever seen, I said. I won't let this opportunity pass. But, Frank started. You survived it, I interrupted. Look, I'll be fine. I'm willing to take the risk, Frank. Curiosity gets the best of me. I don't believe that a tape causes hallucinations or feverish dreams, but I certainly hope it gives answers. He sighed. Some questions don't have answers, Daniel. Nevertheless, Frank Perez clicked on the file, and the tape began to play in a small window. The video contained grainy, blurred footage of a metallic ladder leading towards a rocky, cavernous surface.
This is Auclair,
a man with a sturdy French accent announced.
Status report on the Apollo 11 module. Auclair, this is Mission Control. Apollo 11 module nears arrival. Awaiting your verdict.
A static voice responded.
Roger,
Auclair replied.
Taking my first step now, and the weather's looking fine. You are the first man on the moon, Commander Louis Auclair. Congratulations,
the voice responded.
Thank you, Control,
Auclair responded.
Smithson is joining me now. Second man on the moon.
Smithson joyously laughed. The pair floated aimlessly for a few minutes, reveling in the truth that they were the first 2 men on the moon. Though nobody outside of NASA would ever know, I can only imagine the elation they must have felt.
Readings do not match those of unmanned missions,
Auclair said.
No radio interference. Coast is clear. Negative. Picking up readings near the Surveyor 1 site, Commander,
Smithson said, visibly hopping into the distance.
Copy, Smithson. Did you copy Mission Control?
Auclair asked.
Copy, Auclair,
the static voice said.
Analyzing the transmission now. Unidentified radio signal confirmed. It matches the Surveyor 1 data, conferring with the primary mission controller. Wait for the go-ahead to continue. Continuing exploration. Mission Control,
Auclair announced. The warped footage depicted the 2-man crew bounding slowly across an ever-darkening lunar surface. Their craft had landed on the dark side of the moon. Auclair steered the camera towards Earth for a brief moment, and a white block was visible in the distance. The official Apollo 11 module.
Commander, are we clear to proceed?
Smithson asked. The second-in-command pointed an eager, gloved finger towards a lightless opening in the face of a mountainous ridge.
Auclair and Smithson, this is Mission Control. Awaiting instructions from Controller. We have not cleared you to keep... Negative,
Auclair interrupted.
I won't go home without seeing what's in there, sir. Smithson, we're heading into the cave. Auclair, the Mission Controller has...
The static voice started.
Return. Ship. Aldo 11 crew.
Another voice intermittently growled.
That. An order.
The second man sounded much sterner than the first, but the transmission was so choppy that he was barely intelligible. Auclair took advantage of that situation.
Did not copy your last 2 messages, Mission Control,
Auclair said, hopping ever forward.
Entering the crater.
Commander Auclair and Smithson soared into the blackened mouth of the untoward cavern. Dim lights, fitted to their suits, guided the way, but the camera's footage seemed to deteriorate with every passing second. "Do you hear that?" Frank asked me. I'd been so immersed in the recording that I'd hardly noticed my friend and I were sitting in a dark, empty office. I'd truly believed myself to be on the moon with Auclair and Smithson. But I heard it. "The crackling?" I asked. Frank nodded. "That's interference from the radio signal." "What is this signal that they keep mentioning?" I asked. Frank's face turned pale, but he didn't respond. He simply nodded his head at the footage of the astronauts floating through a narrow, lightless underground tunnel.
"Commander Auclair, do you see that?"
Smithson shouted. The commander gently sprang towards his friend, and the camera revealed a domed room. Oddly smooth walls enclosed the tiny space. It all looked manufactured, somehow. Unnatural.
"What is that?"
Auclair whispered, as the two astronauts swam towards the center of the room. I realized that the light was no longer coming from the astronauts. I distinguished a translucent, glassy object in the heart of the room, a triangular prism that emitted a throbbing glow. The recording was so damaged that it was painstakingly difficult to discern the visuals or the audio. And yet, something about that object was crystal clear. It was immeasurably vibrant, distinct from its surroundings.
"This is the source of the signal,"
Smithson said.
"I told you we were right to land here." "Excellent work, Smithson,"
Auclair said.
"Mission Control, do you copy?" "Aldo 11 crew, do you receive this transmission? Return to your module now."
The static voice repeated.
"Roger that. We lost you for a minute there."
Auclair lied.
"It's beautiful, isn't it, Smithson? We'll go down in history for discovering this. Could it be evidence of alien life? Of God?"
Smithson didn't respond.
"Smithson?"
Auclair asked. The unresponsive astronaut hovered before the prism, transfixed by the inexplicable light it cast from its invisible innards.
"Smithson, we're going to return to the module. Do you copy?"
Auclair asked.
"They might still allow the Apollo 11 mission. We've proven that there is no danger here." "I didn't used to understand,"
Smithson whimpered, seemingly oblivious to his commander's presence.
"I do now."
Auclair glided closer, filming the bright object. The audio interference increased in severity.
"Smithson, are you okay?"
Auclair asked.
"Aldo 11 crew, return to your lunar module."
Mission Control repeated. And then something happened which, to this day, I have not been able to rationalize. The prism's front face reflected something I recognized. A man standing beside Commander Auclair. My dead father. I screamed in horror, and the tape froze. "What the fuck is this?" I asked, panting heavily. But Frank, much like Smithson, didn't hear anything out of his own head. I'm sorry, Amelia. I'm so sorry." I was staring at something beyond any scientific explanation. In a 1969 tape on the moon, I saw my father. That tall, terrifying man from my childhood. A malignant man. A man who somehow eyed me from the prism's surface. An object filmed 30 years ago on an ancient, cursed film. I had long suppressed the memory of what father did to me. The merciless beatings. The night on which he tried to kill my mother. My 10th birthday. But as his bulky black eyes bore into my soul, that painful prism provided clarity that I had never wanted. never needed. It reminded me of what happened that night, how I saved my mother. It revealed the knife in my hand. The blood stained the serrated edge after I sliced his throat. I had to do it, I convinced myself, eyes swelling with fearful tears. The prism tape unfroze.
Smithson!
Auclair cried. Auclair's camera was no longer in his hands. It floated in the cavern, and as it slowly rotated, the angle captured Smithson repeatedly pummeling his commander's body against the rocky wall. The deranged astronaut fumbled for the clasp beneath Auclair's helmet.
No!
Auclair screamed, futilely resisting the stronger man. The helmet released. Auclair seized in agony for a dozen seconds before losing consciousness, and Smithson stiffly watched his friend motionlessly float before him. It sounded as if he might have been crying. Was he still in there? Did he feel remorse? It was impossible to ascertain what happened. As for Auclair's unsheltered head, the footage was, thankfully, too distorted to display the detailed horror of his oxygen starvation. The tape ended. The prism vanished. But on the glassy surface of Frank's monitor, barely discernible against the desktop background, the reflection of my father remained. Terrified, I tried to move. I tried to face Frank. The spectral father grew in the screen's reflection, and his face smoothed before caving inwards, transforming him into an eyeless entity. Following the clarity, there was distortion. The prism had shifted its focus, and we were slaves to its perspective. Using all of my might, I managed to snap my neck free of its paralysis, and I turned to see wide eyes on my friend's face. "It was only supposed to be a dream," he whispered breathlessly. The fluorescent light burst above our heads, and we were plunged into darkness. However, unexpectedly regaining control of our limbs, Frank and I fell from our chairs. "What did you see?" Frank panted. "My father," I whispered. "And he's..." "Disappointed," a voice hissed. I twisted my head to see my father, a man whose frame scraped the ceiling tiles. He was scarcely illuminated by the moonlight, but I could feel those eyeless sockets surveying me. "Run!" I yelled. We stumbled to our feet, and the nightmarish depiction of my father swung hopeful fingers in my direction. He caught the nape of my neck, and I cried in agony as I felt flesh peel away, buried beneath decaying nails. But I didn't stop to lick my wounds. I pushed Frank forward, and we navigated the labyrinth of cubicles. It never seemed real to me," Frank started, as we breathlessly ran towards the exit. "Keep moving!" I screamed. I didn't dare look back, but I heard furnishings and office equipment crumble beneath the boundless limbs of my malformed father. The prism preyed on my darkest thoughts. It depicted Dad the way I had always seen him as a child. Frank burst through the exit, and the light from the hallway spilled into the office. We stumbled out of the blackness, and I spun to slam the door on the abomination pursuing us. Then, with bated breath, we waited for the creature to tear through the flimsy door, before undoubtedly tearing through us. But nothing came. The sound of footsteps tapered away. I pictured my father silently waiting on the other side of the door, baiting me, much as he had always done during my childhood. But there was only silence. It must have been about 10 minutes later when one of us finally dared to move. The IT specialist shakily crept towards the office door. "Don't," I whispered. Let's just leave. Frank shook his head. We have to be sure, Daniel. The man threw the door open, and he flicked on the main lights. They illuminated an empty office space. My father was gone. She's not here, Frank whispered, wiping tears from his face. Who? I asked. I saw her when I first watched the tape. Amelia. My Amelia. She was my wife, Frank explained. I saw her in my dreams. Nightmarish hallucinations, but never anything real. Nothing that came for me. This time she was angry. Frank, I began. It was my fault, Daniel, Frank interrupted. I took my eyes off the road and I didn't see the truck coming. It should have been me who died. That was what she kept saying as we ran. It should have been you. And she was right. She was telling the truth. That wasn't her, Frank, I said. I know, the man whispered. And it wasn't your father, either. What is it? I trembled. The Prism, Frank replied. Everybody sees something different. A person's darkest moment, I said. Frank nodded. But it's never been real before, Daniel. It's never been anything like that. Look at your neck. That's no hallucination. I gingerly touched the bloody gashes behind my head, wincing as the adrenaline wore off, and the pain finally came to the forefront of my senses. Why did Smithson kill Auclair? I groaned. I don't know why he did it. I don't want to imagine what he saw. Frank shuddered. Afterwards, he took his life. Immediately following the horrors which unfolded in that cavern, NASA aborted the mission. Apollo 11's lunar module returned home, and the pre-recorded tape was broadcast on live TV. What about the Prism? I asked. NASA left it up there, right? There was a pause. Then, a response that felt more like he was trying to convince himself than me. I hope so, Frank whispered.